Hello. All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and get this started. First, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Commission on the State of Haiti, Second Community Forum of 2024. My name is Regina Cuellar. I'm the chairwoman of the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians, and I also am a seated commissioner on the Commission on the State of Haiti. Thank you and thank you for being here today. So I would like to go into our closed captioning is available for this meeting. The closed captions can be displayed in English or another language, which will allow you to view an automated live transcript of the meeting in another language, including Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese. To display closed captions on your screen, please do the following. Click the button labeled Show Captions at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you'd like to display captions in another language, select the box at the bottom of the window labeled Enable Translation. You will see a window with the heading You've enabled translation at the top. Select English as a speaking language and select your preferred language in the second menu. Click Save. Automated captions in your selected language should start appearing at the bottom of the Zoom window. We will send instructions in Spanish in the chat. Okay, and before we get started, we like to start in a good way with a blessing. So I'd like to welcome Daniel Burnett with the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians to do our blessing. If you can come up here, Daniel. We like everybody to stand for the blessing. Right there. Right there's perfect.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Daniel Burnett, tribal member here at Shingle Springs Rancheria. I just want to thank.
Can you actually do
in the mic?
mic? Thank you.
All right, my name is Daniel Burnett, Shingle Springs tribal member. I want to say thank you, everybody, and welcome here to Shingle Springs, California. I'm gonna sing a song here to start your guys' business off in a good way. I just want to thank each and every one of you guys. It's so important the work that you guys do, and it's an honor to bless you guys this afternoon. So I'm gonna sing the Bigfoot song because what I've been told and what I've learned is that Bigfoot is actually he's a protector and he's a watcher. So I thought it was appropriate. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey ho hum. Ya he hey, ya he hey, ya hey oh. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for starting us off in a good way. So I'd like to take this time now to introduce our other commissioners that we have here with us today. So I'd like to first introduce Commissioner Filer, CC Filer.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Cece Filer. I'm on the board of the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles. I'm also the chair of UCLA's Neuropsychiatric Board of Advisor. And I am also one of the commissioners on the California State of Hate.
Okay, next I'd go ahead and call on Commissioner Levin, please.
Brian Levin, retired, or as we say, Professor Emeritus now. I had to spell a new word, emeritus, at Cal State's San Bernardino, and director and founder of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism there. And currently working on quite a bit of research on hate crime and hate incidents in the United States. And I just want to say how honored I am to not only have these wonderful public servants and the Civil Rights Department, but also all of you. What an incredible honor it is to be here today. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next, I'd like to call Commissioner Beth.
Hi,
And-
everyone. My name is Andrea Beth Damsky, member of this commission. I am an elected member, director of my local water district, Helix Water District in San Diego County, California. Activist in LGBTQ community, also in the Jewish community. I'm very excited and very grateful for the welcome here today, and I look forward to our forum. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Che.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank Commissioner Cuellar and the entire community for hosting us today. My name is Cynthia Che. I'm the co-executive director of Chinese for Affirmative Action and co-founder of Stop API Hate.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have welcoming Commissioner Sinar.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Shireen Sinar, and I am a professor at Stanford Law School. I study and research and teach about civil rights and political violence, including hate crimes. Was formerly a civil rights lawyer, and I'm particularly thrilled to be here because I have a really strong interest in restorative justice and incredibly eager to hear about the work that is being done here and in other communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sinar. With that, I'd like to welcome everybody to here at the Shingle Springs Rancheria. And I'd like to just discuss the goals of the commission. The Commission on the State of Hate was established to strengthen. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot. I am so sorry. I forgot to introduce our chair, Russell Roybal.
Hello.
Thank you, Commissioner Cuellar.
I'm so sorry.
Believe me, you are not the only one that sometimes forgets I'm here. I'm Russell Roybal. I'm chair of the Commission on the State of Hate. And I also want to extend my thanks to everyone for being here and to Commissioners Filer and Commissioner Cuellar for organizing this, our second community forum. And I especially want to lift up Commissioner Cuellar today because we are here in Shingle Springs. I came here a year ago to meet with Commissioner Cuellar, and I was blown away. Not by the casino, because I have a love for casinos, but because of just the infrastructure here on the Rancheria and the support of the tribal members. The commissioners later are going to get to see not this facility, but I think the most important facility on this land, which is the tribal center and the community center and the youth center and all of the stuff that the tribe does to support its young people in particular. Given the history of the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians and our state, it is especially gratifying to see the success, not only economically, but the success that the tribe has had in supporting its people. So I just want to extend my thanks on behalf of the commission. And as I told Commissioner Cuellar's mother when I met her today, Commissioner Cuellar's a chingona, poderosa, and we are very honored and lucky to have the talents of Commissioner Cuellar, Chairwoman Cuellar, on our commission.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair Roybal. That was really, really nice. I appreciate that. I
Well, your
appreciate.
mom's here, so
Oh, well, I appreciate each and every one of my commissioners for supporting us here today and just for being here. So again, I'd like to just kind of go over a little bit of the commission and the state of the Commission on the State of Hate was established to strengthen California's efforts to stop hate and promote mutual respect amongst California's diverse populations. The commission is charged with researching and publishing data on hate activity, hosting community forums, and providing resources and guidance on how to reduce and respond to hate activity. The community forums, like the forum here today, are part of that effort to give resources to those that are experiencing hate, but most importantly, it's to learn and hear directly from you and how you can help inform the commission in our work to reduce and respond to hate activity. So please, I encourage everyone here today and everyone on Zoom to speak up and let your voice be heard. Together, we can fight hate and make California a safe place for everyone. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and the title of our forum today is called Resilient Roots, California's Indigenous Communities and the Struggle Against Hate. Before we begin the presentations, we want to remind you that if you are a victim or witness to hate, racism, or bullying, you can report and receive free support through the California versus Hate resource line and network. Trained, trauma-informed agents on the hotline will help you identify next steps and help connect you to resources including legal, financial, mental health, and mediation services. Anyone can report anonymously, and your report will not be shared with law enforcement without your consent, unless required by law. Report hate by calling 833-8-NO-HATE or visiting caversushate.org. We'll put the link to California versus Hate in the chat. I'm also very excited to share that the California versus Hate team, in collaboration with my tribal community, the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians, has just launched new materials aimed directly at helping our indigenous communities here in California get access to the California versus Hate resource line and network. It's so important to have culturally competent and in-language materials available to make sure we're reaching everyone. As you'll hear today, our indigenous community has long experienced hate and discrimination, and those resources are necessary. We have a few examples with us here today, but you can also find these and other materials online by going to the Partner Resource Hub at californiaversushate.org. I really encourage our tribal partners to make use of these new materials, whether by printing it out or sharing it online. And if you need, we have some examples, but if you guys need more, we're more than happy to get those sent out to the tribes. So we'd also like to remind you about the free services available for communities through the California Civil Rights Department's Community Conflict Resolution Unit, also known as CREW. If your community is experiencing heightened fear, conflict, or tensions because of discriminatory practices, hate incidents, or hate crimes, the Community Conflict Resolution Unit may be able to assist. CREW offers a range of conflict resolution services to help communities effectively address hate and discrimination-based community conflict. All CREW services are free, voluntary, and confidential. CREW services can be requested by completing the request for service form online and emailing the form to ccru@calcivilrights.ca.gov. We'll put the contact information for CREW in the chat. I'd like to move on to reviewing the process for public comment. First, this commission is a public body, and an important part of being a public body is hearing from the public. To that end, this meeting is open to the public, and there will be an opportunities for public comment throughout the meeting today. To keep an orderly meeting, please make sure to comment only on the agenda item under consideration. If you have comments that are not specifically related to an agenda item, please save your comment for the agenda item titled Public Comment on Items Not on the Agenda. To submit a written public comment, email the commission at csh@calcivilrights.ca.gov. We'll put the email address in the chat. And for everyone in the room today, you may submit a written comment by emailing us or by writing your comment on a piece of paper and handing it to Rebecca or Kevin, who are located in the very back.
Or can they raise their hands?
They're raising their hands.
Okay,
Yes.
back there.
And if you submit a written comment that pertains to an agenda item, we will read it aloud or summarize it when the public comment portion of that agenda item is open. and before any vote. If the comment is not about a specific agenda item, we will read it aloud or summarize it at the end of the meeting during the agenda item, public comment on items not on the agenda. If you would like to speak at the meeting or deliver your public comment, you will have the opportunity to do so during the public comment portions of this meeting. At the end of the agenda item, we will ask if there's any public comment. We will begin with people in the room with us today and then move on to the public comment on Zoom. For those who have joined us in the room, you may request to speak on an agenda item in person by raising your hand during the public comment period, and Rebecca or Kevin will provide you a microphone to make your comment. If you are joining us on Zoom, you may request to speak on an agenda item by raising your hand virtually on Zoom. To do so on a computer, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen. If you're on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. In the interest of time, we will limit verbal public comments to 3 minutes per person. After the presentations, we will have time for public comment. As you consider your comment, we want to encourage you to keep a few things in mind. Everyone is encouraged to participate. The foundation of the commission's work is community input, and we want to encourage you to speak up and have your voice heard. We appreciate the diversity of perspectives. This forum was designed to support learning together and the creation of shared understanding. Everyone brings kernels of wisdom based on their own unique history and experiences. We can't know or understand what someone else thinks unless we listen to them. Therefore, when someone says something that challenges your thinking, we encourage you to listen to understand why they think as they do. Maintain a respectful space. Everyone is deserving of respect. That means I encourage everyone to treat each other with kindness and respect today, even if we might disagree. We are very fortunate to have a fantastic slate of speakers today. However, I want to note that the information presented today does not necessarily reflect the views of the Commission or the California Civil Rights Department. So for our first presentation, informational presentations, Resilient Roots, mention what, 4 presenters, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going over some things. So for our first presenter will be James Ramos, Assembly Member of the California's 45th District. Assembly Member James Ramos represents the 45th Assembly District and is a lifelong resident of the San Manuel Indian Reservation in San Bernardino County, and a member of the Serrano Cahuilla tribe. Ramos has served as a chair and member of the San Manuel Tribal Council and became the first and only California Native American elected to the legislature in November of 2018. Ramos founded and became chair of the California Native American Caucus with members of both parties and both the Assembly and Senate. He has successfully authored more than 20 measures related to Native American issues, including new resources for missing and murdered Indigenous people. I'd like to take this time to welcome James Ramos. He will be joining us via Zoom.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? But thank you so much. And Madam Chair, if it's okay, I'd like to share one of our traditional songs.
Absolutely, please do so.
Thank you. This song talks about Malki, the people as they travel in our area here, Serrano Cahuilla territory. Also includes the Cal State University San Bernardino. Good to see you, Professor. Amuki Malki Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, hey Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, hey Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, hey Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, hey Maya na we, hey Maya na we, hey Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, Amuki Malki Maya na we, hey Maya na we, hey Maya na we, hey Maya na we, aha 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 aha. Well, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak, and it really is an honor to be here to share a few words on the resiliency and roots of our people throughout the state of California. There with Chairwoman Kular, the Miwok Nisenan people, and here in our territory, the area that I grew up on, where I still live on the Samawa Indian Reservation, Serrano and Cahuilla. Part of that resiliency and that roots that we still need to educate those in the state of California of atrocities, genocide that did take place here in the state of California during the different colonizational periods. And some will say, well, that was some time back during the Spanish incursion or even the gold rush. But still coming to terms and the truth about the impact that it had on California's first people and still does today has not risen to the area of acceptance, I guess, in the state of California. And so we still deal with areas of high suicide, mental health components, and missing and murdered Indigenous women here in the state of California. California currently sits as number 5 of all states in the nation of the United States of not even investigating murders towards Native American people here in the state of California. And we worked hard to bring pieces of legislation forward to start to combat those areas and to bring awareness and true policing to the Indian people here in the state of California. Now, some misconceptions that still plague us today are that everyone is from the same tribe, everyone sings the same songs. And you've seen with the blessing and the opening that happened there, where you're at now, and then the song that I sang are totally different because they're different cultures and different languages that we would use. And so also misconceptions that are going on today is that every tribe is successful in gaming, when we know that that's not the case. It's a handful of tribes that are successful, but the majority of the Californian people still live with the need for basic infrastructure, true policing, and having domestic violence cases and restraining orders followed through by the state of California and the federal government. But all this goes back into time, into history, when the colonization, the first Russian exploration, Spanish exploration, Mexican rule, the United States rule, and ultimately the state of California. Each one of those eras towards California's first people was really destructive to our culture, taking tribal people from throughout the state and moving them to different areas as indentured slavery took place. And we've seen that there was tribes that were totally wiped out of areas. There's different historical areas of Bloody Island up in Northern California where tribes were wiped out. So genocide truly did take place against California Indian people. And there's a book by Benjamin Madley that talks about the American genocide that puts all those different things together with the UN declaration of what makes genocide. And so even moving forward and talking about genocide is a new component to a lot of people in the state of California, that they don't see that the California Indian people suffered in that area, because they say that there's us that are still here, but there's whole tribes that were wiped out. That language, once that language is gone, it's gone forever. And it's a mentality that continues to move forward towards our Native American women during this time, that seen them as something less than human when these excursions came through, taking them and at some points, June Paracero had them shackled. And it's documented that they were shackled at the Monterey Bay, both sexes, Native American people. And when asked about that to a colleague, when I was pushing AB 338 to get a monument on the Capitol grounds, which now sits on the Capitol grounds as a monument to the Miwok Nisenan people, and really for all California Indian people, that sits there. During that debate, there was a senator that said that shackling and chaining Native American women and children was just a form of public safety back in those days. That's the mentality that we still see, even here today in the state legislature. And so I moved forward on a bill in 2022 that would follow the federal aspect of determining that a word was racist in the state of California, and following the federal government, as we have for the first time a Native American woman as Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, who moved forward to outlaw the S word towards our Native American women as derogatory and racist. I moved forward with the same bill here in the state of California, AB 2022, to ensure that that term, that S word, would not be used here in the state of California. It is derogatory and it is a racist term towards our Native American women. It's a term that was used to degrade them and to view them as less than equal to others in the state of California. In the year 2022, we still have to deal with these issues and have to move pieces of legislation to convince the state of California that these are true derogatory statements. The S word is something that we moved forward on, and we passed it through the Assembly and the Senate, and the governor signed it into law, making that term illegal to use and to change the place names of over 100 place names in the state of California that still carry that name that's derogatory towards Native American women. And they have until 2025 to do that, and working with the Natural Resources Department to make sure that the naming is something that's acceptable. And so those things are still happening today. And why I bring that up, because of the resiliency of roots, resiliency of all people's roots, right? To continue to overcome obstacles. But here in the state of California, focusing on the resiliency and the roots of California Indian people that have gone through atrocities, genocide, tried to be wiped out. My own clan, Yohaviatam clan, here in the San Bernardino Mountains, there was a battle in 1866 where a militia was formed to go into the San Bernardino Mountains to rid the mountains of all Indian people. And this is well documented. It's a 32-day battle that took place where people went into the mountains to rid the mountains of Indian people, not asking them to leave. They were shooting and killing Indian people on sight. Our clan got caught up in that. We dwindled down to less than 30 members during that time. And there's documentation during that battle, that 32-day battle. There was a braggart that was bragging about how he killed 2 Indians with 1 bullet during that time. He said that he killed the woman and the baby inside her. That's how he killed two Indian people at one time. And that was accepted language back then. And when asked why he did that, he said, because nits make lice. That's what happened in our area, our local area. But yet that's not being taught in the K through 12 school system on the correct history. The history of here, the history of there in Shingle Springs territory, the history that drastically impacts our people. And still that historical trauma, that trauma of knowing that those battles took place, is something that still is inside each and every one of us. Until there's acceptance, until there's a path to move forward of true healing to take place, that will be harnessed. And so we have to come together as a people and on this commission to be able to show the resiliency of our people, that we're still here sharing our songs, sharing what has truly happened to our people. It's time that we come together as a state of California to acknowledge all people, what all people have gone through, but also to acknowledge that you can't just start from a point in time today and move forward. We have to address what happened in the past so then we could start that true healing moving forward. Because if we don't do that, then we're continuing that contemporary trauma that still goes on within California Indian people. Being in the state legislature, we've been able to tackle issues of putting up a statue in the state capitol. It's there in the state capitol now, across the street on Allen 13th Street, where people can go and see a testament now for the first time to California's first people. We've moved forward on pieces of legislation that changed a school, a law school name in San Francisco, because that individual perpetrated and paid for killing campaigns against the Yuki Indian people out in Round Valley. Now that law college is now called College of the Law San Francisco, no longer bearing that name. We continue to have to move forward with pieces of legislation like AB 2022, which the governor signed, and moving forward. And some will say, well, that's something of the past, not something that's affecting us now. But I'll have you know that in Fresno County, there was 3 supervisors that put on the ballot initiative just this last March, the right to retain the name that we see as derogatory towards Native American women. Fresno County, 3 sitting supervisors wanted the right to keep that name there. We had a battle against that, and it was called Measure B in March, in the March election. We successfully defeated that initiative, so that the word is no longer acceptable in Fresno County and in the state of California. But yet, as California Indian people, we still have to go that extra mile here in the year 2024 to ensure that people truly understand what is derogatory towards us. It's time that the voices of the Native women, Native people are the ones that are saying what is offensive and what isn't. No longer taking a paternal approach from those that are telling us what's offensive and what's not. It's time that our voices resonate around the table. I want to thank you for inviting me to speak here today on some of these issues, but also I want to make sure that we always acknowledge our ancestors and our elders and the resiliency that they have to overcome the different obstacles that have came their way through history in the state of California, that we could still be here today being called California Indian people. Myself, Yohaviatam, here from San Bernardino County, being able to share songs, but also it's an honor to sit in the state legislature as the first California Indian ever elected and tackling these issues for our people. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Ramos. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're gonna go ahead and go into our second presentation. And that's gonna be Morningstar Galley. She is a member of the Pitt River Tribe located in northeastern California. She serves as founder and director of Indigenous Justice, dedicated to raising awareness and visibility within the unique climate of California's urban and rural Native communities. Morningstar coordinates support of Indigenous-led policies and campaigns. She also leads large-scale actions while coordinating Native cultural, spiritual, academic, and political gatherings throughout California. She is deeply committed to advocating for Indigenous sovereignty issues such as missing and murdered Indigenous women and peoples, climate justice, gender justice, and sacred sites protection on behalf of the tribal and intertribal communities in which she was raised. I'd like to welcome Morningstar. And as a reminder, we'll be doing public comment later after the presentations.
Thank you so much to Chairwoman Cuellar. It's really an honor to be back here at Shingle Springs Rancheria. I was just here a week ago for an event that they had for the local community on missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. And so thank you to all of the commissioners for the opportunity to share with you today and to share on behalf of Indigenous Justice. Respectful greetings, honorable tribal leadership and commission members. My name is Morningstar Galley, and I am a member of the Pitt River Tribe. I want to open with sharing some of the words from my policy director, Ashley Rojas, who is here in she lives in Fresno County. And there have been a number of initiatives within the Fresno County region, such as writing and drafting the proclamation for missing and murdered Indigenous women with local tribal leadership in honor of Bessie Walker, who was disappeared in 2020. The Measure B, the success in the Measure B ballot that Assemblyman Ramos just mentioned, and in the efforts of Fresno County around removal of the SQ word. The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples is heavily saturated with human rights and Indigenous rights violations and hate crimes, specifically of Indigenous women and girls. Exploitive resource industries and extracting industries create conditions where Indigenous women and girls are put at risk through the degradation of their ancestral homelands, decimation of their inherent and inextricably dependent relationship with the biodiverse ecosystems historically dependent for spirituality, sustenance, fibers, and medicine, the pollution and contamination of the air, water, land, and increased economic violence, and the rising violence and harm to their mental, spiritual, and physical health. Through the International Indian Treaty Council, which I serve as the California Tribal and Community Liaison, and Indigenous Justice, we sent a submission for the report on violence against Indigenous women and girls. As Indigenous women globally face increased rates of violence and harassment, the issue is nuanced and touches many facets. complex jurisdictions, racial discriminations, strategies to silence human rights defenders, strategies to forcibly move Indigenous peoples out of their homelands, and further environmental violence are all causes of agrarious contributing factors. In the United States, 85% of Indigenous women are affected by sexual violence. Of those that experience sexual violence, 97% of those assaults are perpetrated by non-Indigenous peoples. The numbers are undoubtedly much higher because accurate data about the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls simply does not exist. In the US, Indigenous women face complex jurisdictional requirements which arise simply because of their status as an Indigenous person. As a result, there is a gap in prosecution, and often it is up to the federal government to exercise the prosecutorial discretion, which they decline at alarming rates. At the federal level, these crimes have more than a 90% prosecutorial rate of declination. Violence against Indigenous women and children is multifaceted. Overt racism and aggression towards Indigenous women in particular are shown through the use of the term of the S word. In Indigenous communities in the US, we refer to this as the S word, similar to other extremely offensive racial slurs. In the US, the S word is a common name for federal and state lands and parks.
Morningstar, I hate
Yes.
to interrupt you, but
Sure.
I think you have some slides. Would you like us to go ahead and do those
To
slides?
share the slides. Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I didn't realize they weren't. Yes, if you could share the slides,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
that would be
No
helpful.
worries.
Sorry about that.
Oh, to advance them. Okay. So in our slides here, I just wanted to share some of the information in terms of the diversity, the cultural diversity of California. And so as we heard in the traditional prayer songs that were just shared, I want to share that my youngest daughter who's in attendance here was just at Roundhouse ceremony all night and made her way here. So this is the EPA tribal lands map, and then the unratified treaty lands and state of California county boundaries. And so this shows the diversity of California tribes, 109 of the 574 that are federally recognized throughout the United States. The waves of genocide that Assemblyman Ramos spoke of, and the 18 unratified treaties throughout California. This is my first cousin, Tuia Garcia. She lives in Fresno County. She's a member of the Dunlap Band of Mono tribe, and her mom, my aunt Shirley Guevara, she serves as the vice chairperson for Dunlap Band of Mono, and so they've been really instrumental in the renaming efforts of the S-Word Valley. These are some of the signs on private land that still exist, that are still there currently. And this was just this past week where this is a Facebook, a social media post from County of Fresno, where Supervisor Massig is taking a photo with the 8 county sheriffs and thanking them for their support, where they are challenging, although, with the mandate through AB 2022, with the ballot measure going forward and failing back in March, they are still organizing and coordinating to keep the S word within the Fresno County area. This is a program that we have within the city and county of San Francisco. And so we are awarding micro grants and the first of its kind guaranteed income. It is a pilot project through DOSW and Indigenous Justice, where we are awarding 10 survivors of violence with $1,000 a month for the next year. And so to be able to support in that way. So I'll continue. Additionally, the inattention to the missing and murdered Indigenous women crisis is highlighted through what many in the Indigenous community call missing white women syndrome. In late 2021, Gabby Petito went missing while traveling in Wyoming with her boyfriend. Her case reached every part of the United States via mainstream media outlets. However, when an Indigenous woman or child goes missing, affected families and friends rely on social media to spread the word and conduct their own investigations. It should be noted that when Gabby went missing, so did Bessie Walker, a member of the Big Sandy Rancheria of Western Mono Indians in Auberry, where her family had conducted and led volunteer search efforts. There still has not been an identified suspect in Bessie's unsolved case. So I'm going to highlight some of the cases of violence against Indigenous women. Khadijah Britton, 23 years old, Wailaki, and an enrolled member of the Round Valley Indian tribes. Khadijah Britton went missing February 8th, 2018 in Covelo, California. She was taken at gunpoint by a former boyfriend that she filed domestic violence charges against the month previously. Mendocino County Sheriff's officers arrived the following day with only a paper notepad and pen to take down notes of her abduction. There was no involvement of outside law enforcement or the FBI during her investigation. It took 3 years of community advocacy and support, and her case is still considered unsolved. Jessica Alva, 35 years old, Blackfeet and Yaqui. Jessica Alva is a mother of 6 children, had been clean and sober for 4 years while living in the San Francisco Native community. Jessica passed on April 6, 2019, succumbing to her injuries believed to be caused by her former boyfriend, who had been released in late January. He called 911 reporting an attempted hanging or suicide. She was transferred to the local county hospital where she was kept on life support for 3 days. Her family believes that her boyfriend is behind her injuries and ultimate death, as she had cuts and bruises all over her body that were inconsistent with a suicide by hanging. Her family worked hard to have law enforcement do a proper investigation after smelling bleach in her place of residence after she was admitted to the hospital. Law enforcement did not effectively investigate and ultimately ruled her death a suicide. Nicole Smith, 32 years old, from the Manchester Band of Pomo Indians. She's a mother of 3 children and was shot and killed in her home while sleeping during a drive-by shooting on November 19th, 2017, near the Mendocino coastline. 5 children were inside the household while Nicole Smith took a bullet to the chest through the front door, and witnessed her have a seizure and bleed to death. Well, it took an hour and a half for Mendocino County Sheriff's officers to arrive. Nicole's boyfriend found several shotgun shells on the porch of the residence. The family was evicted from the home shortly after, in part due to law enforcement failing to find the perpetrator. Wanted to share some of the statistics about the rates in which Native women, girls, and Two-Spirit relatives go missing or are murdered within the U.S. That 4 out of 5 Native women have experienced some form of violence within their lifetime. That's 84.3%, more than half of who have experienced sexual violence. That Native women face murder rates more than 10 times the national average, even though we are 1.1% of the total U.S. population and 2.2% of the U.S. population of women. Homicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among Native girls and women aged 10 to 24, and the 5th leading cause of death for Native women aged 25 to 34. That according to the National Crime Information Center in 2016, there were 5,712 reports of missing Native women and girls, though the U.S. Department of Justice Federal Missing Persons Database only logged 116 of those cases. The number is likely much higher, as there is no reliable count of how many Native American girls and Two-Spirit people go missing or are murdered annually. I want to acknowledge that we have Isaac Boriquez from the California State Department of Justice, Office of Native American Affairs. There is a survey that is being conducted for missing and murdered Indigenous peoples throughout California. we sent some handouts over to be printed that can be distributed for that with those survey links to be taken that will be compiled into a report. I wanted to share some of the intersections when it comes to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. These are the intersections that lead to MMIW, suicidal ideation, codependency, victims of human trafficking, lateral oppression, alcohol and drug addiction, domestic violence, sexual assault, complex mental health issues, complex trauma, unsheltered peoples, lack of family support and judgment of family on victims and survivors of crime, system-involved youth, that youth in foster care are the most vulnerable to this violence and abuse, that they are invisible with their identities kept confidential, and suffering from mental health challenges, drug addiction, and trafficking. By assessing the needs and advocating alongside and on behalf of system-involved Indigenous peoples throughout California, through Indigenous justice, we are seeking to elevate needed support and creating pathways of healing and empowerment for survivors of violence back into our tribal and intertribal communities. For the past 160 years, California Native peoples within tribal and intertribal communities are living resilient and thriving while continuing to break legacies of intergenerational trauma through traditional pathways to healing. As tribal members, we are committed to supporting the healing through community organizing, advocacy, centering of cultural practices, through movement building and action. As we organize throughout our communities, we are accountable for responding to the changing needs and are committed to working for structural change and transformation of the dominant narratives in which our stories are told, narratives that blame and further marginalize system-impacted Indigenous women and girls. There is a dire need across the state to invest in girls and gender non-binary, non-conforming people's potentials, advance their rights, and address the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, men, boys, trans, and two-spirit relatives. As missing and murdered Indigenous peoples is the legacy of resource extraction in the form of gold mining and plundering, values of excess and greed, and the genocide of California Indian peoples still very much exists today. I wanted to share, this is why we have the Guaranteed Income Pilot Project, is that we know that when people of all genders, but specifically women and girls, are resourced well, then they are able to make better decisions within their lives. So this was an event held at the state capitol this past week. 1 week ago was the second time that the state capitol was lit up in red for missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. Here are the photos. This is Nicole Smith, who I mentioned, from Manchester Point Arena, Nick Britton, and 15-year-old from Round Valley Indian Reservation. And so these are some of the families that survivor families that we have worked with in supporting their cases. I wanted to share in terms of some of the hate crime information. Here's additional photos from our prayer walks that we've held. This was 1 year ago. This is a relative of mine, Yogi Magarva. Just 2 weeks ago was the sentencing for Yogi, and this was supported by the Department of Justice, by the Office of Native American Affairs and Attorney General's Office. I was asked to write and read the victim impact statement. Yogi was killed by his partner, who was non-native, in his tribal home on tribal lands. This was the first time in Modoc County that a non-native person was prosecuted for the killing of an Indian person in Modoc County. And so it was a 4-year effort, and the family has now stated that they are able to move forward and begin their healing process. It's still very challenging in that the public defender for the individual that was sentenced in 26 years to life for killing Yogi also represented his nephew in an alternate case. And so these are the challenges within small rural county areas. I wanted to speak to some of the hate crime cases. It was at a vigil for Bessie Walker that Ashley and tribal members within the Fresno County area had helped to organize, that it was brought to our attention of Patty Dawson Vasquez. Patty is a Native American mother who is Navajo and San Carlos Apache. She had attempted to seek help, fearing for her safety after our carload of probable racist skinheads tried to run her off of the road. Miss Dawson was pulled out of her car, beaten and kicked to the point of unconsciousness by the group in the car. That included individuals with swastika tattoos. According to eyewitnesses, the attackers that were driving fled the scene. Miss Dawson suffered a concussion, a broken nose, and other facial injuries that may have, and she also suffered a broken rib in the unprovoked attack that left her traumatized as she was unable to work for a long period of time. After a considerable amount of pressure, Fresno County sheriffs arrested her attacker, who used a dangerous weapon and seeks to cause serious harm, but stopped short of the attempt to kill her. The two male accomplices that were with her had not been identified, arrested, nor charged. 3 days after Dawson suffered the attack, the Fresno Bee reported that the 3 juveniles were arrested on felony vandalism and hate crime charges after going on a graffiti rampage in which they tagged 20 homes, cars, and fences with swastikas and white supremacy slogans. The Justice for Patty Dawson Committee learned that the owner of the vehicle had tattoos of the KKK on his back. There was an effort to the Civil Rights Division to launch an investigation in the crime which injured Patty and left her with a broken spirit and mind. Ultimately, Patty's case was not deemed to be a hate crime. So I am here today to address a deeply troubling and urgent matter that demands all of our collective attention. As I serve as the tribal liaison for the International Indian Treaty Council and as an advocate for human rights, I'm grateful today for the opportunity to speak out against these pervasive injustices that have inflicted immeasurable pain and suffering within our communities. Despite progress in civil rights and social justice movements, hate crimes against Indigenous peoples persist, serving as a stark reminder of the deep-seated prejudice that still exists within our society. In Northern California, these hate crimes take various forms, ranging from physical assaults and vandalism to verbal harassment and discrimination in housing, employment, and education. Indigenous communities are disproportionately affected by poverty, substance abuse, and mental health issues, further exacerbating their vulnerability to violence and discrimination. The root causes of these hate crimes are multifaceted, stemming from historical injustices, cultural ignorance, and economic disparities. Stereotypes and misconceptions about Native Americans perpetuate harmful attitudes and behaviors, creating a climate of hostility and fear. It is imperative that we address these issues with urgency and determination to prioritize the protection of Indigenous peoples' rights and safety, hold perpetrators of hate crimes accountable for their actions. This requires comprehensive measures, including enhanced law enforcement efforts, community outreach, and education initiatives, support for Indigenous-led organizations. And moreover, we must confront the underlying biases and prejudices that fuel hate crimes against Native American peoples. Education and awareness are crucial in challenging stereotypes and fostering understanding and respect for Indigenous cultures and traditions. In Northern California, countless Indigenous families are grappling with the heart-wrenching reality of loved ones who have gone missing or who have been brutally murdered, their voices silenced, and their stories untold. The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples is not merely a statistical anomaly, but a manifestation of systemic failures and institutionalized racism that have plagued Indigenous communities for centuries. Historical trauma, social marginalization, and economic disparities create a perfect storm of vulnerability for Indigenous women and girls, leaving them disproportionately susceptible to exploitation, violence, and abuse. The lack of adequate resources and support for missing and murdered Indigenous peoples' cases further compounds the problem, with many cases going unreported, unsolved, or dismissed by law enforcement. Indigenous communities are left to navigate a complex and often hostile criminal justice system that fails to prioritize their safety and well-being. It is imperative that we confront this crisis with urgency and resolve. We must amplify the voices of Indigenous women and their families, centering their experiences and perspectives in our efforts to seek justice and accountability. This requires comprehensive measures, including improved data collection and reporting mechanisms, culturally competent victim services, and enhanced coordination between law enforcement agencies and tribal governance. Additionally, we must address the root causes of violence against Indigenous women, including poverty, housing, insecurity, and lack of access to healthcare and educational opportunities. As we strive to address the crisis of MMIW in Northern California, we recognize the interconnectedness of this issue with broader struggles for social justice and human rights. Indigenous women are not only victims of violence, but agents of change and resilience within our communities. I'm here today to share some of the information on the follow-up of AB 2022 that Assemblyman Ramos mentioned, with the removal of the S word from over 95 place names in California. As we confront the pervasive issue of hate crimes against Native Americans, it is imperative that we recognize and address the systemic racism and cultural insensitivity embedded within our language and public spaces. The S word has a long and painful history of being used as a racial slur against Indigenous women, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and contributing to the marginalization and dehumanization of Native peoples. Its use in place names not only perpetuates the erasure of Indigenous voices and identities, but serves as a constant reminder of the deep-seated prejudice and discrimination that continue to plague our society. In recent years, there has been a growing recognition of the need to confront and dismantle racist symbols and monuments that glorify colonialism and white supremacy. The removal of Confederate statues and other symbols of oppression has sparked important conversations about the power of language and imagery in shaping our collective unconsciousness and perpetuating systemic inequalities. The continued use of the term S word in public places sends a harmful message that Indigenous women and their contributions to society are insignificant and unworthy of respect. It is a form of linguistic violence that contributes to a culture of misogyny. So I just wanted to stop there and just say, in speaking with Chairwoman Cuellar this morning, we were talking about how, as California Indian women, some of the racial prejudice that still exists today, and how every day is a struggle against the invisibility and erasure of the ongoing erasure of California Indigenous peoples. And so that has been our efforts in terms of addressing the removal of the S word from public place names, in taking a meaningful step towards addressing the legacy of colonialism, honoring the dignity and humanity of Indigenous peoples. Moreover, the process of renaming public places provides an opportunity to engage with Indigenous communities and honor our languages, our cultures, and our histories. By centering Indigenous voices in this and perspectives in this process, we can ensure that the new names reflect the rich diversity and heritage of California Indian peoples, that contribute to a more inclusive and respectful public discourse. As we move forward with implementation and replace the S word with names that honor and celebrate Indigenous peoples, this is not only a matter of linguistic accuracy, but a fundamental question of justice and human rights. Let's build a future where all people, regardless of their race or ethnicity, can live free from hate and discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morningstar, for that presentation. And I'd just like to remind everybody that we have handouts regarding the survey that Morningstar was just talking about. So please, I encourage everybody to do the survey. And there, again, we have handouts. So grab some handouts and give them out to your community. So thank you so much, Morningstar. So next, for our third presentation and our final presentation, we have two presenters that will be sharing today. We have Christina Snyder Astari, Tribal Affairs Secretary in the Office of Governor Gavin Newsom. Christina Snyder Astari is an enrolled member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians and is a lawyer specializing in Native American law and policy. She currently serves as the Tribal Affairs Secretary to Governor Gavin Newsom and leads the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs. Thank you, Christina. When we also have with Christina is Loretta Miranda, Deputy Tribal Affairs Secretary and Special Counsel of the Office of Governor Gavin Newsom. Deputy Secretary Loretta Miranda is a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians and was raised on the Morongo Indian Reservation in Southern California. She currently serves as Deputy Tribal Affairs Secretary and Special Counsel for the Office of California Governor Gavin Newsom. Thanks, Loretta, for being here. Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Christina.
Yahui, thank you, Chairwoman. And thank you to Shingle Springs for inviting us to be here today and for hosting us in this beautiful location. It's, I kind of wish that these were up so that we could see.
I know. We tried putting them up. It was just too much light, everybody.
Well, really appreciate it. Thank you to the chair who's not quite in the room right now, but also thank you to the commission for inviting us to be here. Loretta and I are going to tag team this one. That's why I didn't want her to just kind of be standing up here the whole time. So I will frame what we are going to talk about today. We don't have any slides, so hopefully the discussion is interesting enough, or you can rest your eyes if you'd like. Chmai, hello. My name's Christina Snyder Ashtari. I'm Mihila Kauna, people of the West Water, and Makamo, people of the Salmon Hole. And I'm a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians here in California. I currently serve as the Governor's Tribal Affairs Secretary, and I've been in this role in some iteration or another, sometimes with two jobs since February 2018. So have been through a couple of cycles of policy at the state we are kind of winging it because we knew our previous presentations were going to cover a lot of what we do here in California, and we're going to be very strong and powerful. And so didn't want to duplicate efforts. But I think I'll start with saying that a lot of what we experience as Native people doing Native work in spaces that are not made for us is kind of the ongoing disrespect, the ongoing microaggressions, the ongoing lack of awareness throughout the entire United States, but particularly in California, that makes it almost impossible to do better for our people. Oftentimes we end up in conversations where we're asking people to do more, to invest more, to help us help our people. We're not even asking for them to help us. We're saying, hey, we know what we want to do. We know how to do it. We've done it for like a long time before you all got here. Things were pretty good. Can you just like move over and we can do this, but also give us the resources that you took away plus a little bit of interest so that we can do it. And we end up in these spaces of people having no clue what we're talking about, having no idea what it means to be a California Indian, having no idea the experiences, the history, the statistics, and the lack of accountability of the dominant culture toward our people. And so we end up in spaces where we can't even get anything done because we're telling everybody all of this stuff. We're educating constantly. Morningstar has all of this great experience, great ideas to bring to the table. But if she's just talking about the history of Native people and how we got here, she's wasting her talent. You know, we have ideas, we want to move forward, and we want to be able to build a better future for our people with this background, with this history. And it's really hard to get there if all you're doing is educating. So I'm just saying that as kind of a background of, you know, why we're doing some of the work we're doing here in California. And I think I'm going to start really quick by asking the commissioners, are all of you from California? Not everybody. Okay, but some people. If you grew up in California, did you learn in school about the local tribes that you grew up in? Like in this area, would you have learned about Shingle Springs? No. Okay, so everybody, have you ever learned about the local tribes in the area you grew up in? Now you have. When was that?
Much later in life. That was not part of, if you're saying in the history classes all through elementary, junior high, or high school, no. Mm-mm.
And so even, you know, the awareness in your home that you were in a place that was completely populated by Native people who are completely diverse and maybe had some languages that you might be able to think about, no idea. Okay, so that's what we're confronting here, is all of you are major policymakers and you grew up with this lack of awareness, not by your choice, but it's just the culture you grew up in. And it's a society that inherently tells us that we're less important in the lands that we're from, the lands that our people are buried in, the lands that our spiritual places are, and that we're a footnote in the history of this place of California. California is turning 175 next year. Our people have been here since time immemorial. So if you're learning history of California and you're not learning those histories, you are very, very much not understanding any of the reason why we do any of this here. So I just wanted to say that kind of at the outset, because that's not a California problem exclusively. It's also a United States problem. If you ask anybody what they know about like the tragedy of Indian country, they'll tell you, well, the Trail of Tears. We have multiple trails of tears in California, and a lot of people don't know about that. What Assemblymember Ramos was talking about when he talked about the law school that got changed, that was one trail of tears out of many trails of tears. 7 different tribes were driven up to Round Valley to another tribe's ancestral land, forced to live there on like nothing. And when people ran away, they were chased and hunted down. Imagine that, you know, being removed from your house. And then when you're like, this is like, we know those guys, we don't really like them very well. We might like them, but this is their house. We're going to go home. People chasing you and making you live there. Your family might have been pushed somewhere else, or they might have hid. So you're in this place that isn't yours. You know it's not yours. You just want to go home and you can't. Meanwhile, when you're gone, everybody else moves into your house, puts locks on the door, and then when you come back is like, haven't we given you enough? So that's kind of what we confront every day in policymaking. And I think we're still doing that here in California, where every day that we try to do something positive for Native people that addresses this history of violence, displacement, erasure, we're confronted with a dominant population and a public who, through willful ignorance, asks if there's going to be another casino, asks don't the tribes have enough, asks, well, why would we do something special for Indian people? And all of that, those are easy answers. They're out there, but it requires people to understand that there's this gap in knowledge. And so by asking those questions, it's this continued perpetual violence where Native people are having to educate everybody else on our own painful trauma in order for us to get anything done. So I had a book that I had in my office when I did policy work in Washington, D.C. I worked at a national advocacy organization, and we represented the interests of all the tribes throughout the country. But most of the time in DC, California is just too confusing. And so they're like, I'm like, not kidding. You're laughing because I think they think about that, about everything. But California is basically, it is confusing because the history of how things went in this country is that as westward expansion occurred by the Americans, the killing machine got more sophisticated. So by the time you get to California, which is at the edge of the manifest destiny of the American people, you have treaties being negotiated and then hidden and sworn under secrecy because of California lobbying efforts. You have people being like citizens being funded to go out and murder people. You have legalized slavery that they call indentured servitude. You have just this like awful, awful, super effective killing machine once you get to California. So that's why our history is different. That's why our jurisdictional issues are different. That's why everything that we try to do to address these issues has to be different because our history is just so violent and so different. And I didn't mean to go on a little bit of a monologue before we got started, but that's kind of why in California, my job, Loretta's job, what we do is advise the governor. We develop policy. We advise the cabinet. We advise agencies under the governor's purview on tribal affairs. So tribes as units of government and people who are overseeing their constituents and jurisdictions. We advise on Native American affairs because we have the largest population of Native people generally in the state because of relocation policies. And the two largest populations are actually Navajo and Cherokee, which are not from California. So we try to be understanding of this, first people first, and then the first people who came from other places. And then we think about the layers there. And then we also do international Indigenous engagement to make sure that as we're doing things that are progressive, we're bringing along partners in other places that might have similar colonial experiences, which turns out to be a lot of people. In that role, we do this thing called the California Truth and Healing Council. That's what we were actually invited to talk about. And the California Truth and Healing Council was born out of an executive order issued by Governor Gavin Newsom in June of 2019, which basically said, we know that the state is responsible for all of this history that you heard about from Assemblymember Ramos, that state actors were responsible for the wholesale removal, genocide of California Native people. We acknowledge that we had that part in this state's history. We apologize for it, and we're going to create this council to better understand from the California Native perspective, what was that experience? What are the things that from California Indian country you think are important for the state to be accountable for? And what do you want to feel like you're starting to be made whole? Part of the reason why it was an apology and then a process was he wanted to apologize, but also sometimes you're not sure what you're apologizing for. And if you apologize for the things you think you're apologizing, but you're from a Western colonial perspective, you may be just, we apologize, we're done, it's over, and really you haven't gotten to the source of pain. So he created this council, which is ongoing. We have a hearing right after this. So if anyone wants to stick around. But he created this council really to say, like, what are we apologizing for? How can we link this history with modern day? And how can we create remedial actions, remedial investments in order to address this history of violence, dispossession, and trauma? And really part of this was to elevate that history and experiences. Part of it was to shift whose stories matter in the history of this state so that we have a more holistic understanding of what California is, how it came to be, what cost there was in its creation, and what does every single Californian, whether your family was here back then or whether you just came now, how are you complicit in the ongoing erasure and genocide of California Native people, and what can you do on your own to do better? And so I'm gonna very quickly read something I don't know, might not be quick, but I'm gonna read it. Because when I was in
Please do
DC
so.
working on this work, this was before the American Genocide book that came out from Ben Madley. His book came out, I want to say in 2018. Governor Brown at the time made everybody read it. And it's informed a lot of the work we do actually here now. We also like a book called We Are the Land, because it centers Native narratives, Native experiences, and it's a beautiful kind of seamless blend of our origin stories, which are our histories as we know them, with kind of what's being reported from the dominant culture as well. But I wanted to just illustrate kind of what we're dealing with when we talk about this history of violence that has always been a part of this state. So there was a book that I kept when I was in DC, because again, that work gets really challenging. If many of you do policy, so you understand that it can be really hard to stay in spaces that feel like you're kind of the only voice in the room, and you're the only one who understands what you're saying. And so I had on my desk this book called Exterminate Them, and it's all primary sources, all from newspapers throughout California. And it was edited by Cliff Traxler, who's a former NHC commissioner, and also is a professor at UC Riverside currently, and Joel Heyer. And I wanted to so when I would, get frustrated, I would read passages from this because it's in the words of the people who were doing the actions. And so I know I'm probably going over time, but I'm going to read one of okay. And then I do want to let Loretta talk a little bit about our documentary and our process. But this is from the Daily Alta, California, from January 21st, 1851. And it's entitled Our Indian Relations. And this is by someone who is an ally. It's not my perspective, it's not my words, but I think it's illustrative of the ways that you can also feel like an ally, but also be completely disrespectful and denigrating of the people that you're trying to help. So, I'll just read it. So the bickerings between the Indians and whites, which at first with an ordinary degree of tact and ability, tempered with justice, might have been silenced and subsequent difficulties been avoided, have at length reached a point when very effective measures must be pursued, or the districts bordering upon the range of the mountain tribes be, if not depopulated, at least most ruinously checked in their progress. There's no doubt that the mountain tribes have at length assumed a hostile position and are in sufficient numbers to keep at bay any weak parties of our people who may march against them. Being thoroughly acquainted with the mountain passes, I think I'm reading the wrong. Yeah, I'm reading the wrong one. I'm sorry, everybody. I'll start over. Our Indian difficulties, and this is January 15th, 1851. It is to be hoped that the temperate and reasonable address of the Indian agents, which we published yesterday, may have weight with the public and induce that forbearance and moderation which the importance of the matter demands. Not only do we hope that the miners and people generally will pause and let reason and justice guide their conduct toward the ignorant, starving savages, but that our legislators and all those who hold public and high trust will use their influence to prevent the effusion of blood. It is not for the benefit of the state, viewed even in a pecuniary light, to annihilate these poor creatures. But there are reasons infinitely beyond all estimated dollars and cents, all prospects of profitable business or professions, which should guide our counsels and conduct. There is a question of justice, of humanity, of right, of religion. They are the original possessors of the soil. Here are all the associations of their lives. Here are their traditions. The trees which we cut down are the volumes of their unwritten histories. The mountaintops are their temples. The running streams which we turn aside for gold have been the storehouses of their food, their fisheries by us destroyed, and their supplies cut off. The wild game, which gave them food we have driven from the valleys, the very graves of their sires, have been down for the glittering gold which lay beneath. The reckless of our people have not stopped at these inevitable results. They've been abused and outraged the confidence and friendship of the trusting Indians, robbed and murdered them without compunction, and in short, perpetrated all those outrages against humanity, decency, and justice, which have entailed upon the American public nearly every war which has turned red with Indian blood, the Green Valleys from the Pequot to Narragansett nations, all the way through the continent, which we have taken from them, to the sand-bordered homes of the Yumas and the Oten Hills of the Clear Lake tribes. Is it not time to pause and inquire if might is right in this matter? We make war upon them and annihilate them. But is that the best policy? Is it humane? Is it polite? Is it Christian? We answer it is not. The Indian has his vices. It is to be regretted that the white man has many, aye, greater by far than these poor children of nature. And it is known, too, that they have lived on the most friendly terms with us until oppression has broken all the bonds between the races. We have driven them to the wall. We have pushed them from the valleys where their arrows procured their meat, from the rivers where they caught their fish. We have destroyed their oak orchards. We have cut down or burned their wheat, which was the seed of the wild grass, have slaughtered the men and debauched the woman. And now the atonement is to be utter destruction. I see you there. Can God look down upon such cruelty and bless the people guilty of the outrage? We therefore call once more for the moderation of counsel and moderation in action. Our agents are already on the mission. Let all good citizens give a helping hand. Let us avoid, if within the bounds of possibility, an Indian war. Such a calamity would not alone be one to the Indians. It would cost lives of many valuable citizens. And should it end in the total destruction of the Indian tribes, it would be at the cost of treasure and blood horrible to contemplate, for which there could be no adequate return, and would be a result over which the philanthropist, the Christian, and every true-hearted man would mourn as the last great sin of national injustice, violence, and oppression. So I know that we're at time because I've been reminded many times with some, you're at time, but I do want to have Loretta really quickly talk about our process, if that's okay.
Yes, it's fine.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Welcome, Loretta.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us here. And thank you to Shingle Springs for hosting. I'll keep it short and sweet. I do want to go into a little bit of detail about the California Truth and Healing Council and the process of which we are, going through this initiative together. And so, as Christina mentioned, this council was set up through executive order. And I think from our perspective, this is a community-driven initiative. And to that end, we have been traversing the state, trying to get it to as many communities as possible by doing quarterly meetings, and on those off months, doing regional hearings or listening sessions. So there's essentially one in-person meeting per month in order to gather testimony from local tribes and local Native people and add that to the record. The report, so the Truth and Healing Council has a report that will be issued next year, 2025. And we're going throughout the regions of the state to hear from the community what the current needs are, or what the needs are, and also what is that true history of California, and shifting the dominant narrative to a Native narrative and telling the true history of this place. And to that end, we realize that not everyone is going to pick up a report and read it. And although this report is one that we are hopeful that will not be another report that ends up on a shelf that we refer back to in a couple of decades, but we want to make this as iterative as possible. And to that end, we have a documentary project that we are working on with film director Jacob Kornbluth, who is an Emmy award-winning director. He comes to all of our quarterly meetings. We do have a sizzle reel. We have QR codes. If you want to come up to Christina and I, you can kind of scan that and watch the sizzle reel. But the purpose of that documentary is to, one, educate the dominant culture on the California Native story of California. And two, California is a very complicated place. We are the most diverse population of Native peoples. And so if we can do it, anyone can. And so to serve as a roadmap for other communities to look at this as an example. And so we have the documentary project. After this meeting, please don't run away. We have a regional hearing next door, and the regional hearings are again aimed to hear testimony from local California Native people, local tribes to put on the record. Our next meeting will be in June. We're going to have regional hearings up in the Bernie, Susanville area is what we're aiming for. We have some handouts that we have outside, so please stop by and grab that information about where we will be next. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your guys' presentation. And thank you, Christina, for going over that in the beginning. I think it's much needed and, just thank you for taking that time to do that. So appreciate that. And with that, we're going to go ahead and that's the end of our presentation, but we are going to go ahead and I'm going to transition over to Commissioner Filer for public comment.
Well, first of all, I want to thank our speakers for really powerful presentations. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. So thank you so much to all of you. And to you, Commissioner Cuellar, for hosting us up here. This has been a really important public forum for all of us. So we're going to move into public comments. I'm just going to let the commissioners know. I'm going to let the public go first, and then we'll have comments from or questions from our commissioners as well. And just a reminder to everyone, we encourage participation, and we do appreciate a diversity of perspectives, but we really do ask that everyone maintain a respectful space in this room when they're asking their questions and making their comments. We're going to move into comments about the presentations. There'll be a time at the end for comments not related to the presentations. For right now, let me review the process. We're going to first go to the people in the room. You can either do that by standing up and making a comment or question, or you can write it down and again, hand it to Kevin or Rebecca in the back there. Then we'll move on to any comments for people on Zoom, and if we have any email comments that have come in. So if there's anyone who is in the room that has a public comment or question, please raise your hand and we'll have you come up and begin this process. Anyone in the room? Oh, please come up. 3 minutes and I'll give you,
Actually, Rebecca, I think, oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
fine.
and I'll give you a 30-second warning when your time is almost up, okay?
Ayukuinakna, Virginia Hedrick, Shregon Mewamechek. I said, hello, my name is Virginia Hedrick. I'm a member of the Yurok tribe and the executive director of the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health. I also serve as a commissioner on California's Racial Equity Commission. Yeah, thank you. My comments related to, I had a chance to just briefly review the report, the initial report you all released, looking at research and data. And I want to just applaud Morningstar mentioned really the data gaps that exist in understanding violence against American Indian and Alaska Native people in California. I have a background in research and epidemiology, and so I know that it takes extra work to really understand. I have a colleague, her name's Abigail Echohawk, who has referred to this phenomenon that happens in Indian country as data genocide. It's another way of erasing Indigenous people, is asserting that we're just too small to show up in the data, the numbers, don't warrant. And there's a number of really common practices that can be used, such as pooling years. I also just want to highlight that much of the history that was already shared here today lends itself to racial misclassification of California's Indigenous people. So often in publicly available data sets, we will be placed as multi-race, and that's really erasing the Indigenous experience. As we talked about the waves of folks not indigenous to this land that has come here, we often exist as multi-race people. And if we check more than one box, we're functionally erased from the data. So I think it's really important when looking at data sets to tease out AIN alone or in combination with another race. Oftentimes in death records and data sets, we know that we're racially misclassified in California upwards of 30 to 60% of the time. And we're able to do that by linking birth certificates to death certificates. So we're quite literally born Indian and dying white. And that has to do with a mother or a family member completing the birth certificate and a funeral director completing that death certificate. And that happens if we phenotypically appear Black or white, or if we have a Hispanic surname with really no recognition of the missionization of California and our existence as humans who may choose to marry any number of persons. So I just wanted to comment and lift up the issue on
Just going to give you 30-second
Yeah.
warning because I don't want to.
Yep,
Yep,
just,
Jen.
I'm in closing, just want to highlight the issue of data and how important it is to understanding an issue and how important it can be in erasing folks.
Thank you. That's really valuable information. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Virginia, for that. And
Yeah.
I do know that the commission does know that there are a lot of gaps in data. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to come up with a comment or a question? Anyone else? Kevin, Rebecca, do we have anyone that's handed in? Oh, okay. Monica or Tommy, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
Shirley?
There's somebody in the room as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we go to Charlie, would you like to? Yeah. Oh, you don't have
We
to.
can get you a microphone.
Right,
You can
it-
sit
yeah,
right there.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I should.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm sorry. I forgot we had microphones to hand you.
Hi, my name is Luli Velasco, and I am a local El Dorado County resident and Native and Latina woman, Chiricahua Apache and Tohono O'odham. And I'm executive director of Red Paint Collective. And we are a family and cultural education and resource center, just getting started here in El Dorado County. But my question was, I loved what Christina said about, did you all, and as diverse as the group is, did you all learn this in school? And you're our policymakers or our advocates, or sit on these in these big seats with big charges. And so I'm wondering if and or why, or can we in the future include those members such as Senator Alvarado Gil, or even I think it's Joe Patterson that is the upper end of our county, if they were included or could be included, because they're so, well, she, at least right now, I've just recently met Joe Patterson. I'm a first 5 commissioner, and I attended Advocacy Day in February, and that was the first time I'd had any face-to-face with him. But I've had a wonderful and huge amount of interaction experience with Marie, and would just really love to see them be a part of this, especially those that are so active. I just saw them at Farm Day and that fun frog jumping activity they did. But I think just to be so connected to the community and then see them supporting, being included, even speaking about what are they going to do. They bring so many other great things directly to the community. Real direct service, I guess, is an approach I feel like I could, or a term I could use for their approach. And I would love it. I mean, she just did a tribal tour, and I just would really personally, doing the work I do as intertribal, would love to see their support. Regina and her Chingona group really make it happen. It's super for them to have, the tribe and the reservation behind them. But for the intertribal folks, it's hard for us sometimes, to do the work we do and not have the exact same type of backing. And I feel like those officials that are this active in supporting, Latino activities, for example, this would just be really super duper, had they been here or, included or I don't know, somehow, that be a part of what you guys do, because to have them be representing us, and we're so close to the state and that work is so visible, would be really great, knowing or feeling secure that they are on the same page with what you all just heard and went through and are participating in. So thanks for
Thank
letting me
you.
sit here.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And your comment, why we do work well with Senator Alvarado Gil and Joe Patterson. Hopefully will be coming up to the reservation to do a tour. But I agree with you. I think more interaction with them as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go to Zoom, is there anyone else in the room who would like to make a comment or have a question? Oh, okay. Thank you. Here, we'll get you the mic.
Thank you for letting me sit here as well. My name is Vevila Blossoming Bear. My people are from the Choctaw Nation, but I grew up here in California, and I serve as the tribal liaison for the California Interagency Council on Homelessness. And what I wanted to share is that tribal leaders are receiving death threats in their efforts to, in their efforts to move forward solutions to address homelessness that make Native Americans more visible in the public eye. Thank you.
Thank you for. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, in the back there. Thank you, everyone who's sharing. This is really important.
Hasasaka Nikiyam Kakan, Calvin Hedrick, standing because my wife just told me to. I work a lot with young people, and one of the things that we've been working on for quite a few years, 20 plus years, is changing California curriculum for our elementary schools. And a lot of the things that we're talking about, especially some of those things, the question that Christina asked, a lot of those things really can start to change if we're looking seriously at that curriculum and we're making efforts to teach the truth. For a number of years, I taught American Indian literature at Chico State, and every single semester that I taught, a student would come up to me and say, how come I didn't learn that anywhere else? How come I'm only learning it now? And now a lot of the time when we're going into some of our communities to create really meaningful change, we have to go in and first teach what Christina was talking about. Recently we had a couple of school name changes down in Sacramento, and there was a great effort to try to keep the name Sutter. But when I went out and did presentations and just used like the truth about Sutter from people who were here at the time, nobody said a word, nobody argued with it, and the name was changed. And I think a lot of times we need to start doing that in our elementary schools so that those changes are made there rather than to continue, because we know that when we're educating people are starting to look at things differently, especially in the community. And I think anytime we're talking about like the state of hate, there's a lot of that I think could be dealt with, through that curriculum. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you so much, and so true. Any other comments in the room? Anyone else? Okay, why don't we move on to, and there was nothing handed to you while we were, okay. Let's move on to on Zoom. You said we had someone on Zoom, Monica?
Shirley?
Okay, Shirley here.
All right, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, let me go. All right, I'm from Fresno County. I live in Dunlap, and we travel daily to the valley or to the S word area, and we're pretty active in the community. And I appreciate Ramos speaking about the Fresno County and how Measure B is going on there. And Nathan Magsick came there on Wednesday at 5 o'clock to speak with the community. And as he was speaking, it made me feel like I was back in the 1910s, 1920s, 1950s, where people were ready to lynch us up because we wanted something that they didn't want. They want to try to reinstate changing back Yokuts Valley to the word, the S word. Max said wasn't directly telling them what to do, but indirectly telling them, if you want to do that, you need to get an attorney, you have to sign petitions, and it's up to you, to whoever you put in office. They have to think and vote the same way you do. People were making excuses about, oh, well, we lost, we didn't win this one round because it was a misunderstanding. We couldn't understand how to vote, and we put down the wrong answer. Instead of no, we put yes. And if you don't know how to vote, then you shouldn't be doing that process. Is a possibility. But anyway, that's still going on. Racism still rears its ugly head at Yokuts Valley. Now, some of the businesses are saying they're keeping their S word. They're not changing it. All this changing is the town. Do they need to change their names, the S word, with their businesses? Because they said they're private and they can do what they want to do. And if they want to put up a sign, they'll put up a sign because it's their town.
There's two of us on here. So my mom just was talking about Yokuts Valley, and my name is Tuia Garcia.
Okay, so we'll move on to giving you 3 minutes, just to be fair. Okay.
Okay. Hello, Manahu, Tusiga Maticha. My name is Tuia Garcia. I'm Pit River and Dunlap Banamono Indians. We live about 15 minutes from Yokuts Valley. When my mom was talking about Nathan Magsic, she was referring to the Fresno County District 5 supervisor. I'm going to be talking about the Native curriculum, and we are in an area where at Dunlap Elementary School, they are still teaching popsicle sticks and building missions. This is the kind of area we are living in. The principal, who is still the principal, he goes to church. We have no issue with anybody going to church. What we do have an issue is with postcards being set up in the main office area where there are stereotypes of Indians at a church camp. We asked for him to take it down. He would not. He was very irate, very angry. The education for our kids with still building the popsicle sticks in the mission. My son came home. I didn't understand the picture he was making, the drawing, and I asked him to go ahead and explain it to me. And he said, these are priests whipping the Indians. And I said, oh, well, why? And he said, because they are lazy and they refuse to work. So this is the stuff that we are constantly advocating for our children. We do have, and on top of that, we do have an Indian program up there. So we're constantly in the struggle with keeping the S name, changing it to Yokuts Valley. And although it has changed to Yokuts Valley, the town is still struggling to keep the replacement names, and they just refused to. At the meeting on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, with Nathan Magsic, we heard we are here first. This is we want this name here. We're going to fight for it. And if the signs are put up, we're going to go ahead and take them down. We wish this was the 1950s. Why do things have to change? And there was a whole bunch of clapping. There was a whole bunch of laughter. Mind you, Yokuts Valley is a population of 3,000 and maybe
I just want to give you a 30-second warning, okay?
Okay,
Just
thank
so
you.
you know.
And at that, and at the meeting, there was maybe at least 175 people. So that's 0.05%. But he was saying this is the majority of the community that want to keep the name, and it is not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it. And thank your mom as well. Thank you to both of you. Do we have anyone else on Zoom?
No one else on Zoom. Oh,
Okay.
one more.
Oh, back there, we have, yeah, okay.
Kathy?
Hilly. My
Yes.
name is Kathy Corey. and I am Chick Chansey. I want to thank this commission for having this presentation today. And I especially want to thank Morningstar Galley for her presentation on MMIW and MMIP. I think that no conversation on the state of hate and factors that go into MMIP, homelessness, lack of educational opportunity, lack of housing, lack of medical care is complete without speaking to the injustice that is occurring right here in California and throughout the country in tribal disenrollment. There are upwards of 11,000 Indian people, most of them right here in California Indian country, that have been disenrolled from their tribes with absolutely no recourse. This has contributed to the vulnerability of our populations in terms of our women, our children, our elders, and this has to change. When we have our own people, our own kin that are perpetrating this violence against their own Indian people through tribal disenrollment for purposes of power and greed, it's wrong and it has to stop. As Indian people, we have all suffered the same trauma, whether we are from recognized tribes, unrecognized tribes, disenrolled, disenfranchised. We have all suffered from the history of the California and federal government against our people. And we need a system of justice and real truth and healing for all California Indian people. So I am hoping that this commission will also strive to address these issues because they do affect our women, our children. Our children are no longer eligible for services under ICWA as disenrolled and through many of the unrecognized tribes. And it's an important issue. So I thank you very much for all of your work, and I look forward to a real change here in California in the future. Michigayis, thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Okay. Do we have anyone else in the room? Well, hold on. Let me finish Zoom and we can jump back. Is there anyone else on Zoom?
No one else on Zoom.
Okay. Was Ashley, did you want to make a quick comment? Okay. Sure.
Thank you. And to the room and to the listeners and to the commission, I just want to be clear, I'm speaking as an individual and not as a policy director with Indigenous Justice in this instance. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here. I grew up in, Fresno, California, Central Valley. We've heard a lot about what's happening down in the Central Valley. We've been deep in those fights, both as a team member of IJ, but also as a grassroots community organizer in my home community. I wanted to lift up not only the issues that have already been raised, but there have been two other instances of violence in Fresno County that were initially by our law enforcement, by our local police department, Chief Paco Balderrama, named as hate crimes. And then when they went forward to the prosecutorial office of the district attorney, they were not prosecuted as hate crimes because her office, curiously enough, decided that there either wasn't enough evidence or there were, other factors that would make these not hate crimes. And I want to specifically name this as a pattern and practice of this district attorney and her office. So DA Lisa Smitkamp has a pattern and practice of prosecutorial bias influenced by her personal, political, and or religious priorities. And in May 2023, a church in Fresno, a Lutheran church in Fresno that serves the LGBTQ queer two-spirit community. It also offers its space to our local Azteca danzantes to dance, pray, hold circle there. was vandalized. It had a window shattered, $25,000 worth of vandalism to the church. And Proud Boy markings and stickers were left on the location. And we had to fight as a community to say this is an obvious hate crime, and it never went forward as a hate crime, either for our queer community, for our Native community, for no community that was impacted. Additionally, just recently and maybe just yesterday, DA Lisa Smith-Camp failed to put charges on a near 50-year-old Caucasian man who beat up 3 women at a community concert for wearing hijabs and for espousing support for their communities. He used slurs at these women, and our DA said that these
Just
were,
warning you 3 seconds.
our DA said that this was within his free speech rights, and that organizations, certain organizations are not provided protection under free speech. And so when we're talking about the history of California and the Central Valley in particular, in which agribusiness, which is an extractive, exploitative economy, has been established, there has been an institutionalized imbalance of power to prioritize white supremacy.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
I will. And I
Okay.
just want to say that the reason why these folks are in power and able to protect their priorities is because they've made it that way. They've made it so even when we speak up, we don't get our needs met. And so, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Yeah. I'm going to make sure that we've covered everyone on Zoom, covered any emails that have come in with questions or comments.
No comments via email.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. So what we're going to move, you know what? We're going to move to letting our commissioners have some questions and comments. You've all been very patient, so thank you. Thank you. So let me start with our chair and we'll move up and down.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Filer. I had actually wrote myself a note earlier that said, I think Commissioner Hedrick is here from the Racial Equity Commission. So I just want to say welcome, Commissioner Hedrick, and thank you. And thanks to the Racial Equity Commission, I was able to join the Racial Equity Commission in Delano a few weeks ago. And as Commissioner Hedrick saw, I got to fulfill one of my lifelong dreams, which was to be on a panel with Dolores Huerta, who has been a hero of mine for a long time. But to that end, what I would hopefully suggest, and Deputy Director Watts, I'm happy to do this in partnership with you, is I think we should explore doing something jointly with the Racial Equity Commission and the council that highlights some of these issues and use our joint influence and reach to really elevate these issues in the way that they need to be elevated. So Deputy Director Watts, why don't in our next meeting, let's talk about how we can coordinate with the commission and the council to do something like that in the near future. And I just want to again extend my thanks to all the speakers. And I also want to say, like, one comment that I have is, someone who, the question arose around, where did you learn about the first people of California? I grew up in East LA, but I did not really learn about it until I went away to school. And I was a Chicano studies major and learned about the Kumeyaay folks who were the first people of the San Diego region. And that's only because I took those classes, right? That was, and so I think that that's something certainly that I want to lift up. And the other thing I just want to say, something that I talked with Morningstar this morning about, which is especially those of us who are the products of mestizaje or mestizo, who have indigenous and conquistador blood flowing through our veins, that I think one of the results of the colonialism of the United States, and Commissioner Cuellar and I were talking this morning about the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which annexed the Southwest of the United States, is that the after effects of that is for folks like me who are products of that to have lost touch with our origins and of the people from whom we are descended as the results of imperialism and colonialism and as Latinos in particular and Chicanos in the Southwest, how we should be natural allies and supporting our Native siblings in their quest for justice in our state. So I just want to say that because that is on my mind. It was on my mind this morning and continues to be. And I hope that we can work with the Racial Equity Commission and the council to, like I said, really help lift up these issues in ways that they not only deserve, but are way past time. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And commissioners, I am going to hold you to the 3 minutes as well. So just to be fair. Okay. I'm Shireen. Okay, let's start down this way. Okay.
Thank you so much to all the panelists and also to everyone who spoke in public comment. I think the presentations were really compelling, moving, important, disturbing. So I appreciate really all the thoughts that were shared. I think one of the most complicated issues that we will face as a hate commission is in issues around the criminal justice system and law enforcement, given both that people often feel very underprotected from law enforcement when it comes to hate violence, but also have lots of concerns about policing and over criminalization and the justice system. So I'd love if any of the panelists would be interested in speaking more to this issue in the context of Native communities and the extent to which and in what ways you might be seeking sometimes more law enforcement and feel that it is not available when you need it. And on the other hand, have concerns about the kind of law enforcement that you do have. And also to the extent that any of you are involved in your own communities with restorative justice practices, which, of course, have many roots in Indigenous practice, that would also be something that I'd love to hear a little bit more about.
Maybe we should, with the question, maybe, I think you're asking for maybe some more feedback from some of the people that are here.
Right, but I think maybe Commissioner Che was saying that should we collect a couple of questions from commissioners first and then you can respond.
That's a great idea. Yeah. And then maybe some of you that are here could address some of these issues. Okay. Okay, when we, yeah.
I'm suggesting that because it's related.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you
Thank
can.
you. Thank you.
Maybe
Okay.
you can address it together. And so just to build on Commissioner Sinar, I do want to say thank you. I know that in truth telling, it can be very difficult, and to hear stories of intergenerational trauma that continues today, I do really appreciate your words. And they hit very hard with me. Commissioner Cuellar and I lead the subcommittee on policies and best practices. And one of the things that I think we're looking at is models of restorative justice. And part of it is truth telling, part of it is the healing aspect. And so I'd love to hear more about that process because the council's work is of great interest, specifically how you partner with tribal leaders and community leaders. And I think to Morningstar's presentation about the intersections of harm and how that presents itself. So I'd love it if there could be more elaboration on that. Thank you so much.
And is your, Commissioner Dansky, are you related questions or should we get the questions and comments from some of our speakers right now, or is?
There's a little bit of overlap.
Okay, then let's keep going because I want you guys then to be able to comment with all the questions from the commissioners. Go
Thanks,
ahead.
Commissioner Filer. I want to thank everyone who spoke today. I want to thank again, like everyone else said, thank you for the opportunity to meet here today and hear all these important stories. One of the things that struck me is the common history that so many different peoples have of slavery. and how that can bond us. That's part of my history as a Jewish person. We have African-American slavery in this continent. We have Native American slavery. It's abhorrent, and that really stuck out for me today. One of the things that caught my attention also was the resistance to Native people reclaiming their place, and how hard that is, and particularly the way we're educated. I grew up in New York. I learned two things that are diametrically opposed about Native peoples: the romanticized version and the villainous version, and nothing in between, nothing real about that. So important to see people as real people. I serve with Commissioner Suthers on the recommendations for law enforcement portion of our committee, of our commission. And one of the questions that came up for me that relates to comments by my sister commissioners to my right is questions about tribal sovereignty and the intersection between tribal sovereignty and criminal justice system. I'm confused about what that relationship looks like. I really don't know much about it. I imagine there are gaps and overlaps and missed opportunities to do things better. So, so that's part of my question for our speakers here today. Thank you.
I'm going to let, because I know Commissioner Levin wants to make some comments, but no. I think after, why don't we have them address the questions that were just presented by our three commissioners? Is there any of our presenters who can maybe comment and answer and address some of these issues? Morningstar, would you like to? We can get you a mic. Is there a mic we could bring? Haven't? Thank you.
Thank you. Those are great questions, and I'm happy to provide further recommendations. I can send over by email if that's helpful, but I'll just say that there definitely are gaps, and there definitely are jurisdictional issues that are, the confusion is part of the ongoing efforts of colonization simply. So I will say, for example, AB 1314 is the Feather Alert, which is a notification system for Native peoples, tribal peoples throughout California that have gone missing. And so with that alert system, it is the CHP who issues the alert. And a number of tribes have come forward and said, and it brought the alert forward on behalf of the tribes and that it meets tribal criteria. However, when this is brought forward to CHP states that it does not meet their criteria, particularly because if there are substance abuse issues or a background of mental health and behavioral health challenges, then those alert systems do not go into practice because it is not considered that that person is at risk. And so really pushing forward to CHP. And again, it is that education piece to say that, within our tribal communities, that this is, that this is a sensitive topic, but that we do need to push it forward. And it is an issue of tribal sovereignty, and that it is for the tribes to move forward with this. They are exercising tribal sovereignty in that way. And so, for example, in Modoc County, where we spent time during the court hearing, when the McGarva family was speaking to Highway Patrol, they weren't even aware that this alert system is in place, and it's been in practice for 1 year now. So if CHP, who is mandated to provide that alert, isn't even aware that this is available and this is an alert that is directly for tribal peoples, that's a huge gap in terms of the information. There are a number of restorative justice practices that we can provide as those recommendations, and I'm happy to do that and follow up by email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christine? Yeah, please.
So I'll just build off that too, because there was a question about how
how is it challenging to build out response systems based on trust of justice systems? And I think what you're alluding to is 100% true. I think that there's some hesitancy from Native communities to want state interventions in some ways. And then there's also a lack of interventions when Native communities really want it. And so it's both a combination of, you have some counties where it's like the same people have been doing the same things in the same families for generations. And so you know, call the sheriff and they come 2 hours later because that's what they've always done. And they feel like they know the community and they're not going to be responsive. You have some counties where the relationships are really good and it's because the tribe is invested in that relationship and has cross deputization. And so you've got more trust because all of the law enforcement know each other. But it goes to the questions about jurisdiction and how complicated it is as well here. So the TLDR is that the federal government basically conferred their criminal jurisdiction to the state through PL 280, which Assemblymember Ramos and the AG are actually doing some work on right now. And I would encourage you to follow that as well. When that happened, there was no funding or resources or even education about what that meant that transferred to the state. So we're now in this place where everybody, it's like hot potato in terms of who is going to respond to this. And then also when you've got those knowledge gaps in like, what is Indian country, what's going on here, you kind of have this perfect storm of like people not even understanding what the issues are, what their responsibilities and obligations are, and then being completely underfunded to be able to serve those communities that they're supposed to be serving. Some good models in terms of the justice system, if there are good models, are places where tribal courts have basically built out their capacity and then reached out to state courts to help. So Shingle Springs is actually an example where there's a cross-jurisdictional agreement. Yurok tribe too also has the same type of thing, but those are few and far between because it's really reliant on the tribe having built out its justice system with very little support from the federal or state government. But I would look at those as potential models where the tribes are leading in a space of being able to address and be accountable to their people and getting the justice system to be more responsive in the way that they need it. And understanding that every single tribe has their own laws that they're implementing as well. The third piece, I'm not going to go too long, but we modeled our truth and healing process off several different processes that are based in historical remedial justice practices between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people. And so we looked at places like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, some places in South America as well, where they've done these processes and then consulted with tribes, with Native people throughout the state to understand what would be the best fit, and then created kind of a skeleton of a process that the people who are a part of it are actually driving. So it's really much more of a which we do this with all of our work. It's all tribal consultation driven. We don't have any original ideas because they come from the community. And so we just try to make sure that they meet how we can do it in state practice. But again, it's completely consultation driven, completely community informed, and we try to be as responsive as possible while also acknowledging that there's a multitude of viewpoints and people that aren't coming to the table by choice, or maybe they don't know about it. And so we want to leave space for those people as well. Community driven, but also we're using tools like Marquez at the Civil Rights Division to help us. He's our favorite.
We love Marquez.
Yeah, shout out to him, who are helping us mediate some of the more challenging pieces of this history, because as you've heard, there is some lateral violence. There is there's a lot of stuff here that is hard to navigate, and that we bring our own backgrounds to the table. So we want to make sure that there's kind of a third party mediator to just kind of work through these issues from an objective standpoint. So we utilize people who can help mediate the issues. And then, it's a both blend of consultation informed testimony and narrative that are kind of getting at what are the things that need to be addressed now or long-term, or in the next 50 years. Hopefully not that far out. Hopefully takes quicker than that. But then also, you know, we have a blend of research as an element where we're bringing in like, what are the actual records here of indentured servitude, for example, and matching that up to the narrative that we're hearing, and then proposing remedial actions based on that, similar to what Canada has of like 90 calls of action at the end of their truth and reconciliation process. So happy to give you more information on all the thinking that's been going into it. And it's been a really dynamic process because we've been through like the pandemic and we've had to figure out how to be most responsive based on changing conditions. But happy to have a follow-up meeting with your subcommittee as well.
Do you want to maybe exchange or get, maybe we'll get emails and we'll make that happen.
I have those.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah.
definitely make that happen.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that wanted to comment on the questions from the three commissioners? Okay, thank you. Really. I think what the answer is also, we need to just continue the dialogue after this to get more information. So we'll make that happen. Okay, I don't know, Commissioner Levin, did you want 3 minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
First of all, thank you. And to those whose ancestors loved, lived, and respected this land before anyone else, I want to offer my earnest and sincerest apologies for the history of violence and bigotry which has affected your communities. And I also want to say, as someone who had the pleasure of seeing people involved in the truth and reconciliation process in Canada, how vitally important this is. And a public statement in some ways is merely just words. But they're an important first step to define who we are as a civil community. When one suffers, we cannot be silent to it. When we put together this commission years ago, trying to get it through the legislature, we wanted it to bring the very kind of eloquent voices of indefatigable angels of justice who work oftentimes in the shadows and don't get to not only celebrate the incredible work that our speakers are doing, and if I could also just give a shout out to our hometown assembly person as well, who's not here. We must start with these apologies and empathy. But one of the first pieces of advice that I was given when I started as a young lawyer in this was, these are not self-executing. Caring and words alone can create the fertile soil, but the seeds that we need to address this continuing scourge, this is not a historical thing alone. It is happening today. So I want to tell you, as someone who's involved in this for more decades than I care to admit, my hands and heart are open to you.
I know 30 seconds, Commissioner.
And I want to express to you that your communities bring a special gift. When I first started and pleaded in various places, newspapers, this and that, for help in getting hate crimes that would protect everyone, hate crime laws passed. You know who the only senator that responded at first? Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell. You bring with you not only this history, but this ability to educate those whose arrogance and ignorance continues to this day. So I want to just end by both apologizing again from the bottom of my heart for not only the historic horrors and brutality, but also for the continuing issues that happen today. And I rarely speak for this commission, but I can tell you, their hearts are as full as mine, and I think they will be committed to this as you all are. And I want to again, thank you for your courage, but more importantly, thank you for your work and our ability to spotlight
Thank
the
you.
beautiful
Thank you.
things that you are doing for our state.
Thank you, Commissioner
you.
Levin. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think no other comments from,
I have one thing.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I will not take 3 minutes, I promise.
no, give me 30 seconds.
I just wanted to say thank you to all the presenters for recognizing and including queer and gender expansive people in your work. As someone who is both of those things, it is important to continue to have that conversation. And in particular, in communities of color and BIPOC communities, it is those communities model what it's like to be inclusive. And so I just want to extend my thanks for that.
Great. I think what we're going to move into right now is if there's any comments or questions for things that were not in our presentations or on the agenda, we'll open it up to people in the room. If anyone has any comments or questions not related to what we just had on the agenda and presentations. Is there anyone in the room? Okay. Kevin or Rebecca, any questions? Oh, yes. Oh, wait, a minute, hold on. This is now, we've moved on to not on the agenda or presentations, and it's 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to bring it around quick.
Okay.
So I just feel like it's related because it lives in us, and I think mothers who breastfeed will understand what I'm talking about. I promise I'll bring it around. I just applied for and received through Hummingbird Family Services in Washington, which is a Native-led breastfeeding, birth worker, doula family service agency in Washington. They have a CDC grant to provide Indigenous breastfeeding counseling training across the nation. So my group was just awarded one of 3 trainings in the nation, and we're bringing it to El Dorado County. And I had to say, are you sure you picked us? Regarding historical trauma and everything we've all been to and how that relates to first food sovereignty and the health disparities we experience, all related, because for us, it's all connected. The training is a 5-day training. It's a 45-hour training. There's a certification. The women, Native women that lead it are also therapists before they took these roles on. And I was so excited, but I had to ask 45 hours, like this is just going to be like the most amazing breastfeeding training I can ever imagine. Breastfeeding is like my thing. It's ground zero. It's attachment. It's how we heal our women and we ensure our babies, are healthy and connected and secure. And it's a Native traditional parenting. And I'm so gung ho. But what are we doing for 45 hours? Because I breastfeed my kids till they go to school, and I pretty much know how to breastfeed. So, what's involved? And she said the majority, maybe 30 or more hours of this training is going to be healing the women in the training and their historical trauma related to not being breastfed or the campaigns by the government against breastfeeding, against first food sovereignty. And I was just floored because I said, oh no, that's what I desperately need and never tackle. No, not never, but avoid or resist that myself because it's so overwhelming. And I'm forcing myself to go through the training so that I can be one of the trainers in the community. But I mean, I don't know what that says to you all, but to have a breastfeeding lactation training
30 seconds.
be focused on healing historical trauma, just so we can support our mothers for, health reasons. I find that absolutely unbelievable. So
Yeah.
thanks for letting.
Thank you for sharing that. anyone else in the room that wants to make comments, items not on the agenda? Anyone else? Okay, and Kevin, Rebecca, nothing handed to you. On Zoom, do we have anyone who wants to make comments not on the agenda? Yes, okay.
Shirley.
Yes, this is Tuia Garcia, and I would just like to speak about the breastfeeding. I had my son in 2009, and I went to Clovis Community Hospital, and there was nobody to help me with wanting to breastfeed, and I really wanted to breastfeed my son. And they kind of just forced the bottle, but I wanted to breastfeed. So they took me down to where the babies were being held, and they had to clean out their storage room for me to breastfeed. It was like a little closet, and try to kind of fix it up for me to sit in there, because there obviously no place for me to breastfeed, because he was a jaundice baby. So he was in the little toaster thing. So that was an experience in itself, just that there was nobody else that wanted to breastfeed their child. So they had to clean out the storage room for me. So that was an experience. So yes,
Thank you. That was just a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Any other comments not on the agenda? No one else on Zoom?
No comments via Zoom.
Okay. Anything that we receive via email?
No comments via email.
Okay, well, I guess that's gonna wrap it up. I really want to say thank you. Incredibly powerful forum, incredibly powerful. Everything that our speakers shared, the public comments that you all were willing to share. A very special afternoon. So I want to thank you all, and I think it's time to adjourn. Commissioner Cuellar, anything?
No, I just want to thank everybody for being in attendance today. And, you know, I know some of these things can get really heavy on everybody. And again, you know, we are here to support you and your community. So please reach out if there's ever a need. I will have our cards and information posted. But again, thank you just for being here this afternoon, and to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank you.
coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners Cuellar and Filer, for organizing for today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And don't forget, there is a California Truth and Healing Council right after. So I think they'll probably be setting up right now as we speak. So don't go anywhere. Thank you, guys.